Hey friends, out in the greenhouse this morning. It's after the freeze last night. It's really nice in here. Actually raining in here because it's condensated. Was going to talk about peppers and tomatoes and pruning this morning. And we grow, and we didn't do videos last year on Facebook, or we did do on Facebook, we didn't do on YouTube. I'll get woke up here in a minute. But we prune our tomatoes pretty heavily, and we grow them on strings. And so if you look all the way to the top, there's a spool up there, and as the tomatoes grow up this string to the top, we'll begin to let them down. And the bottoms, we prune off all of the leaves. You can see on this guy right here, he's been pruned up to the first fruit. And whenever they start setting fruit, we'll prune all the leaves up to the fruit, and then as the fruit ripens, we'll pick those and we'll prune all the leaves up to the next fruit. And we just keep doing that as the tomato grows up. And then as it grows up, we let it down. And what we're letting down is just a bare stem. And so we coil it or let it go over the side or just wherever it needs to go. And that lets us grow a lot of fruit on a tomato plant. The less leaves that are on there, the less issues you have with blight and fungus and things like that on your plants. So we've already started these two guys onto the strings. We use these little clamps like this right here. It clamps onto the string and clamps the plant and supports the plant, so we don't use stakes. On our peppers, we're going to do a really similar deal. A pepper plant, there's two methods of pruning a pepper plant. One is when they get to the age that these are right here, you can go in here and top them out. And what that does is makes that pepper bush out. The other thing you can do is let the pepper grow into a Y, and then maintain that Y all the way up on strings. So when it makes its first Y, then you still cut off the weak Y after that. That's how pepper grows, is it makes a Y. This side makes a Y, this side makes a Y, this makes a Y. And so you stay with it all of its life after that first Y, maintaining this. When this one Y's over here, you cut off the weak one. So you maintain this strong Y all the way up, and that's the two methods. And we're gonna do both this year in here just as an experiment. It's a controlled environment, so we're gonna top out a few and we're gonna grow some on strings, and we're gonna see which way they go. And so I'll have you come back here in just a minute. Okay, so this pepper plant right here, we're gonna look at him. And I don't know if you can notice on him, see how he's got a pretty strong stalk and a really prominent Y started? I don't know if you can see that or not. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this Y and we're gonna go with it. This will be one of our peppers that we let Y out. And what we're gonna do is go down here, anything down at the ground or low, we're gonna cut off a few leaves, and we're gonna go with that Y. And so I see actually a choice here of going with three ways, and I'm gonna pick, and yes, Brian, you're cutting off blooms. You're right, I am. I'm gonna pick the two strongest looking shoots for my Y, and this plant will be and I'm not going to do too much. I don't want to put him into shock, but right now you can see we've got a good strong stalk, and that pepper's got a Y, and you can see he's immediately going to make me cut him again here probably just in a few days to pick my dominant branches coming out. But we're going to do that to several peppers. We're going to do the Y, and then the other peppers, if you'll come over here, I'm going to pick my tallest pepper that hasn't got a Y on it yet, and I am just going to top him out. I think we'll go with this one. You can see over here, this pepper's got a definite Y going. This one has two. This guy really doesn't right here, and he's pretty tall. So here we go. We're going to do the method of topping this pepper out. And I just cut him out, the top of that pepper, and we'll go down low. Looks like I've already trimmed him up down low, but there are some, you see these little shoots coming here? I'm going to clean him up just a little bit on both sides, and we'll wait a few weeks and see what that pepper looks like. So remember, we topped this pepper. This pepper, we're going with the Y. Probably a couple of these, we're gonna, the method of watching the pepper Y out. This one looks like a candidate to be topped out maybe at some point. So that is what we do with peppers, and we're gonna follow them this year so you can see the different techniques of pruning peppers for more fruit. And then the whole point of doing this is to get more peppers. Well, a lot of pepper plants, if you just put them in, let them go, you get about 5 bell peppers or something, or 10 or 20 poblanos or something, and then they're done. And with this technique, we're going to try to get a lot more fruit out of our peppers. So back at you in a minute. Okay, we're back looking at a tomato plant. Now, as you can see, this guy's laying over, trying to go over the side of the wicking tub. And with tomatoes, you can stake them, you can cage them up. They need some kind of support. Leon from Gardening with Leon, he will grow these tubs up on barrels and let the tomatoes, actually he trains them to go across the tub and over the other side and then down. We've got them up on a barrel just so they're easier to work with and we don't have to bend down the ground so far. But we're going to grow on strings just like we always have. These, we kind of just got them good and started. If Lynn pans over to our bigger plants, they're just right there to her right. And those we've had on strings for a while, and that's what these will look like as we work on them. So I hung a new string, and these spools will catch up there and later let us let these tomatoes down. But this guy, he needs to be stood up straight, and we're gonna clean up anything down low on him, pruning back. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're cutting off all those great leaves. And yes, we are, but it's for the good of the plant later. We did this last year, and I'm telling you, we're not just gonna go crazy here on this one, but see how a tomato has this main stalk or vine. They send out these branches. This branch doesn't have any fruit on it. It might try to make a bloom or another branch right there, but I'm just gonna pinch that off. Yes, we're delaying our harvest. This other branch over here on this side, there's a little tiny one coming there, and I'm just gonna pinch him off. And I'm gonna pinch this guy off up here. Now, here's a new thing happening on the top. These are blooms coming. And so this branch is gonna go on, and we would leave those blooms there. And later we'll prune all the way up to there because that's going to be this vine or this plant's first fruit. And there's a little tiny bit of leaves coming there. I'm going to knock those out. And then this guy's pretty well pruned up. So when I see fruit here, this will bloom, this will set fruit, and the plant will be on up another foot taller. We will go ahead and cut these off. But right now we'll let them help with photosynthesis, do their job with the sun. And we're gonna get this guy some support. These clips just clip onto the string and then clip onto the plant. And I always like to clamp one real low on the plant. And then we'll put one up a little higher. That one down low is not wanting to stay down low. We'll put one right here below this next Y. Sometimes you have to put a couple of extra ones at the bottom. Normally we don't put but about one every 10 inches, but to start a plant, sometimes that's what you do. So you can see this plant is supported now. He's been pruned. We'll continue to prune and support him as he grows up. And we have lots of tomatoes needing some attention now. So we'll be pruning and supporting. We only planted 2 tomatoes in this tub, and we planted the rest. We planted some tomato seed in here. We just threw it in here. And this tomato seed just thrown in here, you can see is actually doing better than some of our seed plots. These are leaves I cut off, but see these tomatoes here? These are looking great. So we'll thin them. I don't want 16 tomatoes in here, but we'll pick the strongest in another week or so here looking tomatoes, and we'll pull the rest. But that's not a bad method either. There's a couple of mature tomato plants in your wicking tub. Throw some seed in there. Yes, these are several weeks behind these, but that's not a bad thing to have tomatoes staggered all through your garden and your greenhouse all through the summer. So Anyway, that's a great method of supporting tomatoes. It increases the fruit production. It makes it where you're picking all your tomatoes right in front of you instead of down on the ground. The tomatoes aren't laying in the soil. They're up where they can get to the sun. The plant is up. We're keeping the leaves down so we don't, air moves through better. Um, the fruit ripens faster. And it gets all the way ripe instead of being shaded all the time and fruit touching each other and having bad spots. So anyway, that's how we prune tomatoes and peppers, and I just wanted to show you that today. And thank you to my great camera person, and also subscribe to our channel and ring the bell and hit like and all those things that you do on YouTube. We'd like to increase our subscribers. So anyway, thank you. Hey y'all, one more thing. Lynn reminded me that we were really reluctant last year to prune tomatoes, and you sit there and think, I'm killing the plant or I'm cutting all my fruit off. Look at this pile here. This was just off of about 6 or 8 tomato plants, but this was the prune pile for today. The chickens will eat that, but you have to do it. You got to go in, get them on their strings, get those bases cleaned up. There, I missed one over there. So it's just good maintenance to do right up front, and you'll reap the harvest later. The plant gets stronger. It's got a cleaner vine. It'll set on more fruit. You don't have a lot of leaf problems. So it's just it's a great thing to do. But I remember last year when we started doing tomatoes this way, we were really reluctant to come out and cut off a huge pile. And then later in the summer, we would just come in and cut like a 5-gallon bucket off of our tomato plants of greens. And it was just no big thing then. But so just don't kill the plant. Leave 4 or 5 good big shoots that have several leaves on them so the plant doesn't go into shock or die on you. But tomatoes they're tough. They're in a lot of ways, they're like a weed. So anyway, don't be afraid to get aggressive with your pruning, especially if they've gotten away from you already or something like that. You may have to really get pretty aggressive and cut some big stuff off. But if you do this, it works. We did it last year, and we had tomato vines, 15 foot long, 20 foot long. I mean, they were going everywhere. They went up to the roof and took off down the greenhouse, and we just kept clipping them up and picking fruit. So anyway, that's all. Thanks. Hey friends, we talked in the greenhouse today about pruning plants, and couldn't let this one go by. It was kind of bothering me this afternoon a little bit, like I needed to add this to the end of it. So here we go. God talks a lot in the Word about pruning a branch or pruning something that doesn't bear fruit. And I wanted to talk a little bit today. We were working in the greenhouse pruning tomatoes and peppers to get them to bear more fruit. And so I wanted to read something to you here. And this is the Amplified Version, John 15:2. Jesus said, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that continues to bear fruit, he repeatedly prunes so that it will bear more fruit, even richer and finer fruit." So I just want to talk a little bit today about pruning and how many of you have branches. The Bible talks about dead branches or something not bearing fruit, but there's also branches. How many of you just have extra branches? Today in the greenhouse, we were pruning just surplus growth that didn't need to be there, and it was just pulling on the plant, dragging you down, and didn't have anything to do with it bearing fruit. It was just spending resources and energy making those branches and those leaves and more branches and more leaves and not bearing fruit. So how many of you guys have extra branches in your life, and that maybe this whole COVID deal is showing you there was some extra stuff in your life that maybe you didn't need for you to bear fruit? So I'm just throwing that out there. God talks about, I am the vine, you're the branches, and I just one of the things that he's talking about there is the fig. I don't know if you know how much you know about figs, but I've been doing a little reading on figs because we're growing some figs, And every branch of a fig bears fruit, and if it doesn't, you cut it off. And when you cut it off, a new branch will form there and bear a fruit. So every time a fig branches off, it bears a fruit right there. And the stick goes on and branches this way, bears a fruit. Branches this way, bears a fruit. Every single place a fig does that, it bears a fruit. So I thought that was interesting about a fig tree. And so when he talks about cutting off something that's not bearing fruit, if something pops out there and it doesn't bear fruit, cut it off. One will pop out that does bear fruit. Also, figs, this is interesting and kind of, I don't know if this is a twisted thought I'm having or not, but a fig, if you take a branch off of a fig tree that's low and you bury it, bend it down, bury it in the ground, put it under the dirt, more fig trees pop up with more branches and more fruit. And I thought that was an interesting analogy as well. I hope that I bear fruit when I'm above the ground, but I kind of also hope that I do things on this earth that when I'm under the ground and really not there anymore, but some of the things that I did while I was here bear fruit after I'm gone. And so that's just another thought that I had today. But we were talking about pruning for fruit, pruning for production in the greenhouse. And I think it's that way in our life with Christ. And we need to think about, hey, do we have extra branches, extra stuff pulling on us? Do we have a branch that's not bearing fruit? Maybe we need to get rid of it and quit dragging that heavy load around. And a branch can be anything. It can be an extra job, it can be a hobby, it can be a task that you do, it can be an emotion, it can be fear, it can be anything. And so if you're dragging fear around all day during this COVID deal, cut it off, let it go. It's got to go. You don't need it. So, and it's not helping you bear fruit. So just a thought I was throwing out there, last of the day. I thought I'd put that on the video, and I hope that helps somebody in their walk.